The housewares industry is full of wonderful and amazing companies and individuals. The Cookware Manufacturers Association has the privilege of having these incredible people as our members and our partners. We are truly blessed by a long list of industry friends. As a part of our new podcast, What's Cooking with the CMA, we launched a series celebrating the diversity in our industry and how this makes us stronger. Stronger Together celebrates the amazing people in our industry, from designers and trendsetters to engineers and scientists to buyers and executives. We have so many great stories to share and people to celebrate. There are a few sayings coming to mind today as I develop this part of the story. A good half of the art of living is resilience from Elaine de Botton, or it is your reaction to adversity, no adversity itself, that determines how your life story will develop by Dieter Uchtdorf, or my all-time favorite, it ain't about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. A quote from the movie Rocky. All of these sayings are about being resilient and hitting the problems and challenges life throws at you head on. Being resilient, and even more so, standing up taller and moving forward in the face of adversity, is what I think of when I think of our guest today, Emily Cappiello. Emily and I have known each other for a few years now through trade shows and the publications that she worked for. She has always been a ray of light and great to work with. Recently, events occurred that Emily could have crumbled under or hit head on, and guess which route she took. When I saw the email announcing she took over at the Gourmet Insider, I knew she had to be a part of this new series about diversity and strength in our industry. I can't wait for you to hear her story. Getting to know her as a part of this podcast is a treasured memory for me, and one filled with pure inspiration. Join me today as we get to know this amazing woman and her resilience to keep moving forward. Welcome. My name is Fran Grossbeck, and you're listening to What's Cooking with the Cookware Manufacturers Association. Today, we are super excited to have Emily Cappiello, President and Chief Content Officer for the Gourmet Insider, with us. In this podcast today, you'll meet Emily, entrepreneur extraordinaire, owner of the Gourmet Insider, and another amazing person from our incredible industry who proves we're stronger together. You can find out more about the Gourmet Insider at www.thegourmetinsider.com, and of course the CMA at cookware.org. Welcome, Emily.
Hi, Fran. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. And it's been so great. It's interesting. We're going to talk about your journey, and it's that great journey that we connected. And I feel like everything happens for a reason. And it's been a great time getting to know you and preparing for this. So grateful that you joined us today. Before we dive into the podcast, I love to let the audience know a little bit about yourself, where you went to school. Were you always on a trajectory for housewares? Like what's your path?
No. So I, went to college thinking I was going to be a dentist of all things. My grandfather's a dentist. My father's a dentist. And I said, third generation. I worked with my dad for a really long time. I did develop a bit of a passion for that industry, which weird, but yes, I got halfway through the biology program at Stony Brook University and said, this is absolutely not for me. I'm working so hard and I'm so unhappy. And I switched to English. And from then on, I said, it's going to be publishing. That's the way I'm going to be. My very first internship was at Homeworld Business. When I was a student at Stony Brook, my senior year, I worked under Peter Giannetti, and then went on to do my own thing. I worked in flooring. I worked in building design. I worked at WeTV. I was the managing editor of a hip hop magazine. I worked in hard news. It was actually a public relations job that got me into the food industry. I was always a food lover, drinker, loved good wine. But this PR job got me into the food industry, and I was working with Michael Simon and Blue Star Appliances and all these wonderful chefs. And I said, this is really what I want to do with my life. And then Peter actually reached out to me about a year later after I'd taken that PR job and said, hey, what are you doing now? You want to come back? And I said, give me a boatload of money and an office. And I got the office. And I was there for 6 years, and I loved every single minute of it, every minute of it.
Well, if Peter's listening, we're both big fans of his. So I love that that's where you got the start. And, it's really interesting because the journey that follows with what happened with Homeworld and how you got to Gourmet Insider is really interesting. Do you want to share a little bit about that path?
Sure. So what had happened was I had joined Homeworld Business as a senior editor and the managing editor of the Gourmet Insider, or of Gourmet Insider, which was the trade focused publication that was run by ICD. And I just fell in love with the independent housewares industry so much. Like, I'm telling you, 3/4 of them are still my friends today. We still talk today. I love that industry. I felt so warm. And that was kind of my place of growth. And I realized that while I was in doing the Gourmet Insider, the trade publication, that we didn't have anything dedicated to, the food trends, the drinking trends, the lifestyle trends. So we had swapped this supplement that we had called On the Table and made it into a full-on trend book. While we were doing that, I ended up saying, I really love this side of the business. I'm going to see if I can do some consumer writing. So I started writing consumer. I started at Pop Sugar. I started with Forbes, and I just started pitching and getting myself out there in the consumer world. So I was lucky enough to have the knowledge of a trade journalist as well as the, writing style of a consumer journalist. The pandemic hit, and I had actually approached somebody at ICD, which is the parent company of Homeworld Business. And I said, I really want to start my own kind of like personal blog. And he said, oh, okay. I think I have an idea, but I'll get back to you in like a few weeks. And unbeknownst to me, Peter and Dave were talking about launching a consumer site, and they had already branded the Gourmet Insider as the consumer site. And then Elliot, who looped me in and said, hey, I think she'd be good for this. She does consumer writing. She's been doing this. And I think she could lead the charge here. And Dave and Peter agreed, and they gave me a shot to run the Gourmet Insider, which is the consumer brand of that publication. So that was, I spent the whole year last year just trying to get up to speed and get content in and get freelancers. We had a big launch party, and all was good. And I was actually doing really what I wanted to do, what I loved to do at that point.
And then what happened with ICD and Homeworld, and then where you are now?
So ICD just said, we can't do this anymore. Not having a houseware show was a big deal for us as far as advertising goes. But, the supply chain also, like it was really tough because people weren't going to advertise when they had no product. They were sold out. I mean, what a boon for the housewares industry, right? How wonderful is that? But how sad for us. And with, Homeworld went, Gourmet Insider, the trade publication went, and I just couldn't let the Gourmet Insider, this consumer thing that we had just launched a few months ago, like I couldn't let it go. I just said, I really want to buy this. I had no right to buy it. I had no business, buying it. I had no knowledge of what to do or how to even run a business or a website or how to code or any of that. But my boyfriend had just died. We were losing the business. I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I said, you know what? I have some money. Let's just take it and run with it and see what happens. So that's what I did. And I'm here, and the site's still here. So I guess we're doing something right.
It's amazing to me. Whenever I hear your story, I think about, there's a saying a friend gave to me when I started my business, and it says, make the leap, believe the net will appear. And I feel like that's what we did. We just jumped. We did, okay, hopefully the net shows up.
I'm still falling. I'm waiting for the net.
Totally get that. Sometimes the best things that happen to us are in the face of those trying times. And I have an affinity towards the independents too. So for me, I feel the independents are the front lines. They are the true knowledge seekers. They see, hear, and encounter all of the issues and all of the questions and topics before we do, and the challenges. And it's actually why we connected. It's one of my big missions with the CMA, is connect more with independents. But what I love too is your focus on food. And I bring this up because some people may question why I'm so into the Gourmet Insider, because what happens in food trends is what will affect our products.
Oh, honestly, that's why I made the shift as, the editor. I think I was the executive managing editor at that point. I always joke that like my titles there were longer than my actual name, which is pretty long. I had, approached Peter and I said, listen, if they don't know how people are cooking or what people are cooking or what they're drinking and how they're drinking, they're not going to be able to merchandise correctly or stock correctly or supply. And that's a big deal. So, forecasting what people were wanting at home as far as entertainment and, the big rosé trend and how that funneled into not just rosé wine, but a rosé lifestyle and home decor, all of that just, it's so interconnected that, if the people in our industry don't know what the end consumer wants, how are they going to create the correct product? So that was my mission there.
I totally agree because there's so many interconnected pieces of trend now. And what's interesting, what you just said is even say staying on the rosé trend, it could be a color inspiration.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
There are so many different pieces of it. So it's so important. We can be overwhelmed by information, but it's really important to try to keep the finger on the pulse. And I love your newsletters because it really gives you a great snapshot. So if you don't have time to go and read long articles in some magazines, like you can go further. What I do is I flag them and I read them in the morning.
How do you feel about my subject lines? I make myself laugh when I write those subject lines.
Love them. You need, in the amount of email we get in an inbox today, you need that smile. And that's what your subject lines do.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I would love to know a little bit more too about when you first entered, and you talked about you interned under Peter, but then you also come back later. How did you see the atmosphere? Part of Stronger Together is focused on diversity. How did you see the atmosphere, and whether it's specifically to women, but how did you see where we were back then when you first, especially coming in college and an internship, to where we are now? Have you seen things change, get better?
Honestly, I've had a really great experience in housewares as far as, me being accepted, me being taken seriously. I have not had the experience that I've had in other industries. Everyone's been very warm and fuzzy. And yeah, of course, there are some people that, are going to not like you, right? That's everywhere. Or there are some people that are going to chat behind your back, or there are some people that have ulterior motives. And those people are, people that I've been able to weed out and kind of keep my distance from, get my information from, but also but that's been few and far between. Everyone's been really warm and welcoming. I've been in industries where women were so objectified and where people were so rude, and, men and other women were just ready to walk on you or use you or whatever it was. Right. And this is not that industry. This is a industry that is bustling and full of life and full of resilient, good people.
I totally agree with that. And I agree with something you just said. I think anyone that you run into where there is an issue, it's just people. It's not the industry. I think overall we're a very accepting and diverse group. And I don't think I've ever felt at any point I've been looked at, I was just Fran, and what I brought to the table was evaluated based on that. And I've loved that about the industry. And I feel the same way you do. I think we're full of great people. And for those few bad apples, that's anywhere,
Right. But you know what?
anywhere.
Those few bad apples could be really great at their job, and you need to respect them for that. And that's kind of,
Amen.
It's just not everyone has the same personality. Not everybody meshes, and that's totally cool.
That's an amazing take on it. And, speaking of, you have such a great attitude. And I think people can now see why I called you a light earlier, because just in talking to you, just brighten up everybody's day. But based on where you've been and this amazing attitude you have towards the industry, and you touched on some hardships you've been through, do you have any insights, or I don't want to say words of advice, but some words you want to pass on based on your journey? You were in the midst of some very challenging times when you made the decisions you did for Gourmet Insider. Did you have anything that was like your thing that you held on to keep going?
I love this industry and I love this job. And I say it all the time because people say to me, how do you do all this? Because I run the Gourmet Insider. I have a full-time job in PR, and I have clients, right, that I help on the side, that I do PR for. And everyone says, how do you do this? How do you do this? And I say, none of it feels like my job. I am lucky enough that none of it feels like my job. everything makes me feel happy and fulfilled in a way that, I could not let this go because of all of the other losses that I was feeling at that point was just hit after hit after hit. And I said, nah, I need this to stay with me because this is what is my light. And this is what's going to keep me going. Like I said, I love the industry so much. I love the people in it. I just went to the IHA event in New York City not too long ago. And like the hugs and the kisses and the love and you don't feel that anywhere else. Like everyone was so excited to see each other. And like, I was so excited to get back. And it was like, it was probably one of the most incredible feelings that I've had in, 18 months. I just adored it. So I just know that, when you love something, you don't let it go until you really have to, right? Until you have no choice anymore. And this is not something that I am going to let go until I have no choice anymore. If that ever comes to that, hopefully it won't.
Hopefully it won't, because you're great at what you do. And I totally get that. For some reason, I'm in love with the cookware and bakeware industry. Don't know why.
I get it. I was
It's just,
editor.
yeah, it just, I think the whole world of housewares, something you just said immediately brought a picture to mind when you said everybody hugging and getting together. Every show you go to, every event you go to, that's just what it is. We're just one big family. And
We are one big family.
We're one big family. And, when you see someone, you're catching up on how they are, how their family is before you even talk business. And the people who've embraced the industry the way we have, when you see each other in an aisle or even in a building, passing through a tabletop or whatever it may be, it's just this feeling of that's where I know Stronger Together came from COVID, but for me, it represented our industry. It's who we are. We're just a resilient bunch.
I miss so much like after markets going out with like I'd get like all these independents and I'd be like, you got to meet so-and-so because she's great. You got to meet so-and-so because he's great. And then we get the vendors. The next thing you know, it'd be 2:00 in the morning. We'd be at a cigar bar. I'd be like, you guys, I have a round table to do tomorrow. But I love it. I love every minute of it. I can't wait till we start getting back to real, trade shows multi times a year. Not good for my body, but good for my mind and my heart.
Could we possibly let ourselves entertain the thought that next year we'll all be together at, the Inspired Home Show? Like, fingers crossed right now, right? So with your path in publication and journalism, if there was someone starting out in the housewares journalism field and they were really focused on this is where they wanted to be, you have any advice for them on how to get started, how to just approach it?
I mean, first of all, get to know your key players first and foremost. And don't get to know them as sources, get to know them as people, get to know them as friends. Half the time you've said it before, I would call somebody and I would say, hey, how are the kids? By the way, I need this, right? But we had a friendship and you have to build trust. I mean, that's any journalism, housewares or not. You have to build trust because these people, you depend on them and they depend on you. And, they're going to whisper things in your ear and you're going to say, shoot, I got to watch out for that. But also, I can't reveal who did that or who said that, or, is that really coming? And I have to dig into this a little bit more. And then there are people that are going to be your allies and that are going to be your friends. And, like I said, I went through a lot when I lost John. I will tell you, the whole industry reached out, text, call. And I wasn't even like, I didn't make a big announcement. It wasn't anything like that. It was just through the grapevine. And as people heard what happened, it was flowers and food. And it was the warmth I felt from these people made me feel like, God, for 6 years, everything I did was so worth it. I maybe didn't have the salary I wanted. I maybe didn't have the perks I wanted, but I had the love of so many people. That's the most important thing is these people and to be trusted and to work hard and know the whole industry. I at first I said, well, I'm only the cookware bakeware editor for Homeworld, right? For Gourmet Insider, my title was different. But I said, oh, I'm only the whole, the cookware bakeware editor. Yeah. But cookware and bakeware goes right alongside your cutlery, goes right alongside your kitchen tools, goes right alongside your glassware and your tableware. So if you don't know the whole industry and you just pigeon pigeonhole yourself into one thing, you're not going to see the complete picture. You're going to be missing out on a lot of things.
I think that's a really great formula described, and I think it goes for any position you want in any industry, but that embrace people, they're not just sources or, that black and white. They're people, they're connections. Work hard. Nobody wants to hear it, but that's the real key to success, right? And love what you do. Love what you do, because then it won't be work when you have to be on your computer at 11 o'clock at night.
I was just going to say, there are so many nights I'd be on my computer reading pages at 2:00 in the morning. My art director would be like, what were you doing at 2:00 in the morning? I'm like, I couldn't sleep. Thought I would get this done. He's like, what?
I totally get it.
What?
Well, this has been an absolutely incredible conversation. And I love your passion for the industry. I love your work ethic. I love where you've gone to. I'm sorry for the obstacles you face, but man, do you do it with a smile and keep going. And
you know what? It made me a better person. It made me a more hardworking person, a more grateful person for what I have, a more graceful person. But I will be honest, at the end of the day, John loved me so much for my work ethic and what I brought to the table. And I don't want to ever not be that woman. That's the way I honor him. So
I was just going to say that's your tribute to him and the relationship, and that to do all things from love and in honor of love. There's no better life that we could have.
Oh my God, I'm going to tear up. Stop it.
This is why we connected. We're like soul sisters here.
I'm no stranger. I know that.
This has been just really awesome. I thank you for joining us today. So many more people will be inspired by your story the way you have for me. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for supporting the Gourmet Insider and the endeavor. We have a Gourmet Insider podcast too. So I want you to come on as soon as you have some time. I think it's great.
I'll be there. Well, this has been awesome. And make sure to check out the Gourmet Insider website at thegourmetinsider.com. This has been really awesome for me. Thank you, Emily, again for joining me today. And we'll have to check in again, see what's going on with the Gourmet Insider on another topic outside of the Stronger Together series.
Absolutely. Thank you, Fran.
Thanks, Emily. Have a great day.
Bye, you too.
And that's a wrap. You've been listening to What's Cooking with the Cookware Manufacturers Association. Thank you again to our guests for joining us today. My name is Fran Grossbeck. We are recording this podcast for the Cookware Manufacturers Association, and you can find my contact information and more at our website, cookware.org. You will find this podcast and others in the members section of the cookware.org website, as well as on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Castbox, Stitcher, and many more. At the CMA, we can't say it enough. Our members are our number one priority, and the association is a proven, valuable resource giving our members access to our exclusive engineering standards with a long and trusted industry history since 1922, timely statistical reporting, resources for retailers, and the best members network in the industry. And of course, important information on topics critical to our industry via our podcasts like this one. Stay safe, be well, and happy cooking, everyone.